Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Stormkeep. My name is Paul, and today I'm joined by.
Hey guys, this is my dog.
Hey guys, this is Corbs.
Today we are going to be doing an update to our Stormcast tier list. We try to do one of these every time there's a significant enough change. And at first, with the Battlescroll, I didn't think that much change that it justified doing this video. But I think recent innovations in our list building, in particular, some events that we went to, have led us to make some pretty significant changes. So I think it's worth making a new tier list update. Before we start the video, I'd like to give a shout out to the sponsor of this episode, Mindtaker Minis, a community-focused shop in Vancouver, Washington. They provide space for local clubs and groups for wargaming and RPGs alike. They carry modeling supplies, terrain, dice, and have a sizable collection of 40k, Age of Sigmar, and Warhammer Fantasy in stock. In addition to reselling Warhammer, they will also buy your unused miniatures. If you've got a big pile of shame in the closet, you can turn it into cash or trade it in for store credit. Visit mindtaker.org and use code STORMKEEP5 to get 5% off your next online order. Thank you to Mindtaker Minis for sponsoring this episode, and now on to the show. A really quick summary of the April 2025 Battlescroll. If you want a full breakdown, you can check out the link on screen now. We did a live stream talking about it and our thoughts. We'll see how well those takes have aged very soon. Not too many rule changes, mostly nerfs to Slaves to Darkness and Flesh Eater Courts. There has been a huge change in how obscuring works. It allows you to now use shoot and combat weapons, and I think that was the one thing holding Paladors back from being an S tier. So don't be surprised in a couple seconds when we flip to the next panel and you guys will see them in S tier. Break a Boss is now Control 5. I don't think that's ever going to matter. And Storm Fiends got nerfed so that people don't spam them. They're now once per turn army, so you can't just null deploy Storm Fiends and pop up in your opponent's turn. In terms of Stormcast changes, Ionis finally has the Ruination Chamber ability. He got the keyword a few months back, and now he has the ability. Vanguard Chamber has been nerfed significantly. Instead of just being all units all the time, it's now used in your hero phase, and it's only once per turn. So that means you cannot use Covering Fire after redeploy, because you have to use this ability in your turn. There's also been regiment changes for the Celestin on Stardrake, Tornus, and Ionis. I think the first of those is the most significant. The other two... shouldn't say Ionis. Editor's note, that should say Iridan. Bummer. Okay. There's also been point changes. We have seen Celestin Prime and the Griftstalker take point cuts, which is nice. Annihilators with shields got cheaper. Annihilators with Grand Hammers got much cheaper. Questers got much cheaper. And Sequitors somehow got a 50-point cut. That is still maybe not enough.
It's enough. Like I would play them, but like not now. You know, we have a month. Like, come on, this should have been done a year ago.
Yes,
like
if we had this tool available for the last year, that would have been very nice. They are a very interesting unit. Bastion got a point cut, but I don't think it's really enough to make any kind of change on how he's currently being played. Same with the Lord Veritant. Lord Veritant is now the cheapest priest. I don't think that matters because the other priests are just way more useful. The 10-point squeeze there doesn't really matter. Andrasta is still overpriced, still competing with Celestin Prime. I think Celestin Prime is just better. And even the Black Talons getting cheaper is interesting, but I just don't like rolling that 3 up. I don't know about you guys. I just, that's not my... yeah, it's not for me.
Yeah, like I would never use her as like a primary hammer, but she's actually like if I think of her as like an alternative to a minimum squad of Stormdrakes, it's actually not that bad. But again, it's like your risk tolerance may vary. So...
yeah, I like that she brings Vanguard. That'll be really important in June when a lot of our units get turned to Legends.
Also, I mean, this is just like a point of like petty annoyance for me. Like, why was the Regiment of Renown cheaper than our book? Like, we're just trading a buff. She gets fight twice in the Regiment of Renown. She gets finest hour in ours. So, I mean, to me, those are equivalent buffs. I don't know why she was more expensive in our book.
Mm-hmm. Lord Imperatant was buffed. He's 20 points cheaper. I don't think there's any point value with the current rules and the current regiment this guy has that there's any way he sees play. I'm willing to be proven wrong.
Anytime he's over 100, he can't see play. Like yeah. he cannot. Like what is he doing? Just like he's worth 100 points. No fight, with your friends. No CP. Like come on, 100. Like he's worse than a Night Quester in terms of ability. In terms of sheer how many abilities he has at a scroll. So
he does one thing once per game, and it's of questionable value.
Yes.
His regiment is not special. I would even argue it's bad. And Stormcast also got some nerfs. Prosecutors and Vigilors went up 10 points, which is not entirely unexpected. These are very good units. They're popping up in a lot of lists. I think it does do a lot for the viability of Prosecutors. I think they're looking a little bit worse because all of their inherent weaknesses are still there. Now that they're more expensive, they're even more obvious what these weaknesses are. Vigilors, on the other hand, I think are still going to be fine. I think we will probably drop from 2 units of them in a list to 1, and I think we're going to be just fine with only 1 unit.
That's still annoying, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Inexplicably, Hurricane Raptors have been nerfed. Not one person has been using them, so I don't understand why they were nerfed. But there it is, yeah.
Can I? My theory for that actually is to stop the Krondys 1-drop list. I think the Krondys 1-drop list did this. They were like Krondys, 2 units of Paladors, a unit of Reinforced Raptors, and then 200 points of Hurricanes. I think it's just to nerf that because they didn't want to nerf long strikes any further. Because I think long strikes are fine as it is right now. They're not like exactly crushing everything and everyone out there.
I guess, but is Krondys worth nerfing right now?
I don't know, man. It's just I don't know what goes on through their head. Somebody at that studio probably got wrecked.
This reminds me of that one Battlescroll where out of nowhere they nerfed Hex Wraiths. Remember that?
Yeah. But back in like 3rd edition when they were not that good. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like inexplicably plus 20 on Hex Wraiths. And everyone was like, huh? What? All right, so let's go over our tier list. If you're new to the Stormkeep, S tier units for us are units that we consider to be so good that you basically can't play competitively as a Stormcast player without including 1 or more of these units in your list. They do something the best that nothing else in our army can do, and it's such a useful thing that they do that you should be using them. It could even be seen as a problem that these units are in S tier because they're so good that they're kind of choking out the competition from the rest of the army. Nobody else is able to shine. So in the S tier, we've put Vanguard Paladors with Javelins, Evocators on Dracolines, Castigators, and the Knight Relictor. If you are playing 4th edition, you know why Vanguard Paladors with Javelins are S tier. They're an exceptionally strong unit. The only thing that was holding them back from S tier in our previous update was the obscuring terrain, because if you were running multiple units of Javelins, sometimes you just got hard countered because there was 4 pieces of obscuring terrain on the battlefield, and there's just nothing you can do to push people off objectives when you can't shoot them. The melee attacks are very poor, and that was really the only thing holding them back. They're still super fast. You usually don't need to use Vanguard Chamber on more than 1 unit per turn, so you can still run 2 units of 6, no problem. Evocators on Dracolines are a very different unit, though. While Vanguard Paladors with Javelins are very fast, they're very shooty, they want to get aggressively deep into enemy lines, pick off things, do some damage, and then power through back to safety. What you want to be doing with Evocators is playing strategically with the objectives. If you're unfamiliar, Dracolines get a strike first buff if they are contesting an objective that you don't control. And this is very, very useful playing defensively. When you finish the turn just slightly off of an objective, you do not control that objective, and then on your opponent's turn, you redeploy 1 inch, minimum 1 inch, in order to get onto that objective and get a defensive strike first. This is a very powerful ability. It allows this unit that doesn't need to charge to do max damage to do a lot of damage to your opponent before they have a chance to hit you. In addition, they have very, very strong recursion right now, combined with the Lord Arcanum on Griffcharger and the Sacrosanct Convocation battle formation. This allows you to return Dracolines constantly throughout your turns, and then during your opponent's turns, if they ever leave you in combat, or if they, if you're unlucky and you don't have anything to power through the Dracolines, sometimes you get stuck. But in general, your opponent can't ignore the Dracolines. They have to keep pouring damage into them turn after turn after turn, and when you're using all-out defense, you're saving on 2s with a huge health block. Sometimes you're thunderstriking people for -1 to wound. Sometimes you're using Sounds of the Storm to get -1 attack. Sometimes you're using Bodyguard for -1 attack, and Signs of Shock and Awe for -1 hit. You can make these guys incredibly tough to the point where they become a menace your opponent can't get rid of. They don't do as much damage as Javelins. In fact, I think they are, aside from Stormstrike Paladors, they are our weakest cavalry unit in terms of damage output, but they do enough damage, and they do it so well at just the right time that we have had tremendous success with them. We recently got back from an event. Margonk and I were both using Dracolines. I ended up going 5-0. Margonk only lost to the player that I ended up beating in the finals. We both had big packs of Dracolines. We're in love with this unit. And now we have the results to prove it. It is S tier, for sure.
For sure. Yeah. I honestly I'm kind of sad they're leaving in a month and a half. I wish we had something to replace them. Even mechanically would be really nice because having defensive strike first without having to spend an additional anywhere from 100, 130 to 210 points on a hero and give them Quicksilver draft. It's really nice. I will miss them. Plus the extra unbind, it actually caught a lot of opponents off guard. Because even though I tell them, they will sometimes not. I will move the Dracolines up and not my wizard hero, and so they think they're safe to cast, but they're not.
Yeah, I mean, I was afraid to face one of the other three Stormcasts at that tournament that had them. They're a lot to deal with. It's 30 wounds, 3 up save. You really have to put a lot into them and make sure they die, or you're just bringing them back. I watched the end of a couple of your guys' games, and they were just coming back all the time.
Yep.
Real frustration, and I think people kind of wrote them off in fourth because they were going away. And we talked about it a lot, being like, wow, that's really, really strong. I'm surprised not more people are playing it. But I think they'll go off into the sunset as I think a missed opportunity for a lot of Stormcast players for the last year.
Well, I'll be fair. See, early on, we always said they were kind of viable. I don't think we ever ranked them below A tier, but I think the problem was everything else in the game was so efficient. This is when Vanguard Calibers were only 220 points. This was when Long Strikes were only 170 points. Vanguard, Chosen, and Belgor. So in that meta, it sort of made sense that, wow, why are we taking a 240-point hammer? Everything else seems to be cheaper. After about 6 months, I would say 6 to 7 months of stabilization, I would say January is when we should have started playing them, really, or December, maybe. But hey, I'm glad we got to play them in March. April.
I think what puts them over the top, at least for me, is that they're in the same regiment as Castigators, which are, I think we can just say it, they're the best shooting unit we have right now. Their damage output per point is very good. You can very easily bring in squads of 3 instead of bringing them reinforced, and they become this awesome tactical screening unit that can, go behind enemy lines to score early tactics and then potentially be in range of a translocate to save them. The fact that they can come back to life once per game with Heaven Sent makes that play very low cost, 110 points, and you just slot that into a list. But then you can reinforce them and get a really competent shooting hammer, especially with priority target, being able to drop in. They have a smaller footprint than, 6 Long Strikes. They obviously don't have the best covering fire in the game, but I think enough people are playing around covering fire that I'm not valuing it as much anymore. Like that juicy 6 covering fire, Long Strikes into a big monster to take it out. You don't see that very often anymore. People are learning they can throw some chaff in the way and then ruin that whole thing. So
I'll say that you'll still get to do those juicy covering fires. It's just that against experienced players, almost never. They know it's coming, so they'll always account for it.
Yeah, Castigators are just excellent all around. Easily the best shooting unit. I will be very sad to see them go, and we have to downgrade to Long Strikes. How crazy is that we are downgrading to Long Strikes in a few weeks?
I mean, we could petition everyone in the Stormkeep, right, to AOS FAQ at GWLPC, whatever that
to keep them.
And no, not keep them, or at least give -1 base rend and 15-inch range to Hurricane Crossbows.
Would make them perfect. That's the solution. Do it.
Just replace the Hurricane War Scroll with the Castigator War Scroll and just change the name.
Yeah, it's just
give them a bird instead of a dog.
Just give them the weapon stats. I don't even want the rules are fine. Fine, Castigators can go off into the sunset with the Griffhound and the crit 5 hits. Just give me the crit 6 hits, 15-inch range, -1 rend base, and just give me that and the Hurricanes as a replacement. Please.
It's the 15-inch and rend. That's really what puts them above.
I agree.
Yeah, they're incredible for their point cost. I've absolutely loved playing with them in the last 6 months, 7 months.
Now, imagine if we had Sequitors for this long as well. I think they would have been a lot higher than we placed them here, but we'll get to them soon. The Knight Relictor, I think, is our best overall hero. There's 2 reasons for this. First of all, the Priest mechanic, that the way it started out 4th edition was very poor. It was unreliable. You couldn't reliably chance on your opponent's turn because modified rolls of 1 did nothing. But once they fixed that, we have descended into levels of degeneracy have never been seen before on the Stormkeep. We are banking points with priests on our turn, and then in the opponent's turn, just translocating units around. We basically never translocate on our turns. It's always on the opponent's turn. So it doesn't really matter whether you have +1 or you have 2 chance or whatever. What ends up mattering is just having the priest keyword and then having the best ability, which the Knight Relictor does. Reducing enemy wards by 1 is ridiculously good. Yeah. Taking Croak from a 4 to a 5 or taking Kragnos from a 5 to a 6, just to name a couple, off the top of my head.
No, it's like Nurgle. It's like we lose the Nurgle matchup if we don't have a way to reduce our wards. That's way too much health for us. No.
Yeah. Even though it is on a 2+, it can fail. The fact that the Knight Relictor is also just a priest who's translocating units around in the opponent's turn. I'm going to do a video about that concept, just counter translocating units around and how ridiculously good it is. So look forward to that. But just know that the Knight Relictor is really good.
Let's not do that. Let's just GW not. Let's not put a target on our backs. That's all I'm saying. All right, I guess I'll go with A tier.
Yeah, so A tier units, I'll just kind of explain this before you start. A tier units are like the bread and butter of Stormcast. These are high impact, efficient units that do something almost as good as S tier units. Like in a perfectly designed book, every unit would end up A tier. That means the units are strong, they're viable, they're tactically flexible, probably. They have a defined niche and they're good at it, right? Obviously, that's a pipe dream. No book will ever be designed with that many A tier units. But that's what we rank an A tier unit as.
Totally. A tier is basically just, hey, you're going to be putting S tier units in your list, but A tier is what's mostly going to make up the other half of that list. And speaking of which, we have the newest addition to the A tier, Questor Soulsworn. Questor Soulsworn were already a pretty great unit. You have 18 health, 3 up save, a bunch of 2 damage attacks. They've always outclassed Vanquishers in that regard, or have been comparable, but with this recent points cost to 200 from 220, they absolutely outclass Vanquishers. I mean, they get a self-teleport. There's 6 of them, and it's a very reliable sort of like objective holder / damage dealer. Like people underestimate damage on Questers, but they can -1 rend 2 damage and 18 attacks on that is actually not bad. It's a very good attack profile. So they have been added to A tier. Vigilors are just, we were talking about taking 2 of these in every list at 130. It's slightly more annoying at 140. You wouldn't want to take 2, but they're still probably our best green, and they have this niche thing of shooting opponents for some extra damage and giving all our other shooters, especially Vanguard Paladors with javelins, +1 to hit. Prosecutors are still in A tier. They're still an extremely good unit. Good shooting, good 3d6 charges are always nice. Fly is always nice. The Ruination Chamber ignorability is nice. The 2-inch coherency is really, really nice. Just a solid unit, but probably wait until after rotation to see mass play. While we have Castigators and Evocators, I don't think they will see a lot of play. Going to the next bullet, it's Vanguard Paladors with axes. I think Javelins just outclass them right now. That extra 10 points, I think, really kills axes when I try to build a lot of lists, because my lists end up being 10 points over or 20 points over. Hopefully we'll see I don't know, I would like to see them reduce hand axes to the same level as javelins. Like, they have to know people just always take javelins, man. But axes are still an excellent unit. Any unit that can just go out 20 inches, charge, and do 3 damage a weapon hit is really, really good. Plus, they give opponents a -1 to wound. They have benefit from blessed weapons, unlike javelins don't really gain much in that regard. So yeah, pretty solid unit. After which we have the good old Vanguard Raptors with long strikes. I think everybody who knows anything about Stormcast knows just how good long strikes are, so I'm not going to harp on this any longer.
Ironically, this is the worst long strikes have ever been, and that's not because they're bad. There's just finally a unit in our army that's better than long strikes.
Right.
And I think that's never been the case. Long strikes have always been the best unit.
They have been, but also I think people underestimate how much worse a 3s and 2s profile is. Sorry, how much better a 3s and 2s profile is over a 3 and 3. Okay? I've had so many shots this past weekend at the tournament with long strikes. I'll get 7 shots with on a single unit of long strikes. I'll get 4 hits or 5 hits. Or if I all-out attack, I'll get 6 hits or something. And then I get 2 wounds because I can't roll 3s to save my life on 6 or 7 decks. I'm getting 3 2s or 3 1s. It's really, really frustrating. And I think that's what kills them, because you pay such a high cost, and if they're only doing 4 or 6 damage, they are not making their points back. So I'd much rather I prefer the volume of castigators, and for that reason alone, I don't tend to rely on long strikes too much. Judicators with bows are basically an alternative to Vanguard Raptors with long strikes. They have 18-inch range. They can turn off rampages, which there are quite a few rampages in this game that are really, really good now. Usharan being one, the Big Pig, Ironjaw's Big Pig being one. So turning those off is really, really nice. It can turn off a Stardrake Big Rampage, technically, if you damage them and roll that 3-up. So just an excellent volume shooter. You could conceive a list with like 6 Castigators and 10 Judicators. It wouldn't be the worst thing.
Oh yeah, Judicators also just have a ton of health compared to our other shooters, and it doesn't sound like that's going to be a big deal, but you can actually leverage it in very interesting ways. Like when Castigators or Long Strikes ever get in melee combat, they pretty much die instantly. They evaporate to a stiff breeze, whereas Bow Judicators just stick around. They keep enemies in combat, your other units can shoot them out of combat, and the Bow Judicators can keep shooting without missing a beat. The higher health is really, really nice on them.
For sure, yeah. It's 20 health on a 3-up, right, for 280, so not bad.
Yeah, very good, actually.
And then we have our hero selection in A tier. Consists of the Knight Arcanum. I would say for 2-drop lists, the Knight Relictor is taking sort of center stage right now, alongside like your other big hero, which tends to be like a whole overall regiment unblocker, or some other specific hero for a specific chamber you want. But the Knight Arcanum is still good. I expect it to see play in a lot of 3-drop lists, and definitely after rotation. Casting Manifestations on a +1, especially on the counter cast with Forbidden Power, is amazing. So that alone, I think, is enough to warrant her inclusion in A tier. Estrella Soulbright, just one of our, like, I guess, I don't want to say cheapest because that's Tornus's job, but one of our most efficient all-takers. A wizard could go assassinate heroes with that +2 to charge she gives to all Dracolines, which she herself is on a Dracoline, so that's something you can do. And then finally, we get to the Lord Arcanum on Griff's Charger, up from B tier, because Paul and I both played that unit this past Saturday and Sunday, and my god, is that unit a powerhouse. It moves 12, it teleports itself, and that healing light, where it just heals any Sacrosanct unit D6 as long as you're not in combat, or brings one model back at the end of every turn. To give you a reference, I had a game against Khorne where I charged 6 Evocators into Blood Warriors, brought them to like 4 models, powered through. I had 1 Dracoline left after all their murder rolls and all their fighting back. Because they had a bunch of Blood Warriors next to it too that they countercharged with. I powered through with 1 Dracoline back. It was luckily on full health. I returned 1 for Sacrosanct Convocation, returned 1 for Lord Arcanum's Healing Light. So I had 3. Then my opponent takes his turn. He moves forward, doesn't touch the Dracolines, they're safe because I have a screen in front of them with Soul Screen Bridge. I bring back another Dracoline, I'm at 4. Next turn, I move them around his Blood Warriors because I don't want to get baited, and I teleport them to the Stormkeep portal on the other side so I can pressure his other flank. Now they're at 5. And his face was, I felt kind of bad, but oh my god, that is so powerful. He basically did nothing. I had a 480-point unit back by turn 3.
Yeah, and that's
entirely.
No Heaven Sent Use, they're just back. It's really good.
Nope. Yeah. So yeah, definitely excellent unit. Plus, there's the list that I was running does not have a lot of -2 rend outside of a minimum squad of long strikes. So in that sense, being able to do some mortals with about 19 attacks with the riders on their Dracolines, the Evocators, actually not bad. Did come in handy to help deal like 4 to 5 mortal wounds per attack sequence. So yeah, definitely Lord Arcanum Drift Charger is definitely worth it.
And the
honestly,
teleport.
I can't imagine ever. Yeah, the teleport is like what I was doing was I was leveraging his movement and to either his teleports to get them in position and just help Dracolines along, or get him in position for a key countercast. I was leveraging his early movement to score battle tactics. Just an all-around excellent unit. And self-reliant, and his damage isn't bad either. Like in there are circumstances where you could like teleport him and then countercast a lightning blast to finish something off, which I saw. I think Paul was doing that in some of his games. So really, just all-around great unit. Then finally we have Karazai and the Lord Celestina and Stardrake. The latter, Karazai, we've known Karazai is good for a while. I don't think I need to explain this. He's been in A tier since pretty much our book came out. But the Lord Celestia and Stardrake is the newest addition because what they changed this time around was they changed his regiment unlocking ability, and you can take any Stormcast Eternals. That alone, his main issue was the Lord Celestia and Stardrake has a wonderful war scroll. He has a wonderful, wonderful rampage that allows you to just eat cavalry units in a game that's all about cavalry. His only problem was he could only take Dracothian Guard in his regiment and the Stormdrake Guard, and that meant you couldn't build lists that were as efficient because Dracothian Guard just aren't in a good place right now. Him being able to take everything changes the map completely on that, and now he is a viable alternative to those Karazai lists just for that. But I know someone who played the Stardrake this past weekend, and that's Corbs. So Corbs, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, like Stardrake is back on the menu, and I'd say if Karazai's an A, Stardrake's moving into A plus territory. I played Karazai a lot. A lot of my lists have now switched to Stardrake, and the thing about the Stardrake is he slaps almost as hard as Karazai. If you're eating models, and again, you only have to roll the dice you get 3 dice. You have to either match the wound characteristic or roll higher, and you eat those models. So he's eating all day. He's the only big dragon, other than the Drakesworn Templar, but they're sort of the same, that can take enhancements. And I think what's really interesting is 2 of our best enhancements, Mirror Shield and Quicksilver Drought, both cater to his playstyle really, really, really well. He has this incredible 24-inch long range shooting, which both the other big dragons don't have, like Karazai and Krondys. And so you can be sort of sitting back and peppering people, and then if they want to come in at you, they have to deal with the Quicksilver, or you bring the Mirror Shield with them and be more aggressive and sort of run around and pin things and eat stuff and do a ton of damage, because he has 7 damage 3 Rend 2 attacks. He's no slouch. Now with Mirror Shield, nothing can do damage to him from shooting unless they're closer than 9 inches. So playing other Stormcasts, they can't drop in, their long strikes. Other, shooting units can't shoot him ever. And he just runs around. On top of that, you take, what's it called? The 5-up ward one.
Envoy of the Heavens.
Yeah. So on top of that, you take Envoy of the Heavens with him, and he's basically bringing his own 5-up ward. And so there's, interesting things you can do around that, of bringing a smaller unit that you're going to throw up early that is probably going to die, or just relying on one of your screens dying. This happens, throughout the game anyways. And so then all of a sudden turn 2 or turn 3, he's got this built-in 5-up ward, and you send him in and he's just devastating. So as far as a full all-around utility, I am ranking him personally higher than the experience I've played with Karazai, and part of that is because of, the utility that he offers. Karazai, everyone's been playing, and including myself here and there, as you'd give him the -1 attacks using Bodyguard, and then he has his own built-in -1 attacks. But the issue with that is you'd always have a unit hugging him, and really good players would just ignore him. And so it wouldn't really matter. And then on top of that, 60% of the armies we're playing, maybe even more, having a -2 to something's attack profile isn't really that effective sometimes, depending on what kind of army you're playing against. Sometimes -1 is totally enough. So the Stardrake, if you really want that -1, you can bring Bodyguard, you can run something with him. But otherwise, he's much more difficult to ignore. So that's my case for it. I played him this past weekend, had a lot of success. It was fantastic. So really great unit.
Yeah, what I like about him, like you mentioned, you can't just ignore him like you can with Karazai. And that's because of that 24-inch shooting attack that's actually doing significant damage. It's doing usually about 6 damage a turn. Maybe I'm just rolling hot with it, I don't know, but it does well for me. And it does it from so far away that you can just sit him on one objective and just destroy things on the other side of the table. You can kill units that are trying to score tactics, like seize the flanks with a covering fire sometimes. Like, people will send out these weak chaff units, to go score them, and he can just snipe them off.
Yeah, it's like 2 long strikes, right? It's like 4 attacks, 2s and 3s, -1, 2. So, okay. It's like a slightly weaker 2 long strikes. I like that.
Not bad. Yeah.
Late game, people always put little heroes on objectives that they don't want to give up, and his 24-inch shot is perfect to kill those guys. It's really hilarious.
And then if he ever gets in combat with high volume attackers, he's gonna do a lot of mortal wounds on the way down. Like, he's not immortal like Karazai is, but he does way more damage in my experience.
Absolutely.
If it's not a monster, if it's anything that's like 5 wounds or below, they cannot afford to be in sustained combat with him. Like, this guy loves going up against like trolls, against eels, against like any 5 wound, like, brawler type units.
All right, let's talk about B tier units. So B tier units are just okay all around. Like, they're not particularly good at anything like the A tier units, or maybe they do have a very good niche, but it's just not that easy to use, or maybe it's just not that efficient. Sometimes they're just too comparable to other units, right? Like, I think Stormdrake Guard kind of fit this bill where we just have other cavalry units that are arguably better, but not strictly better, right? Like, Stormdrakes aren't a bad unit, so they're just kind of a little outshined right now. Usually it could just be a point thing. Maybe they're just a little too expensive. But overall, these are still good units. They're still playable. They are as close to A tier as A tier units are to S tier, right? Like, it's pretty, like, you can pretty much, all of these could be 1 tier. It's just matters of distinction.
Yeah, I think Stormdrake Guard just, like, I wish they were better. I don't know what you could do to make them better. Like, what they do is really, really great. But the thing is, like, they still just rely on the companion weapons a lot for the charge, like, for the most of their damage. I faced a Stormdrake Guard list, and I honestly thought I'd have problems against it because, you could just all-out defense and was always saving on 3-ups, but nah, I was able to kill them pretty easily.
Yeah, they're not tough.
Yeah, if you have volume of attacks at -1 Ren, if you have that volume, they will roll enough ones and twos for you to just, like, either kill the unit or completely neuter it to a point where it's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think that just means they need to be cheaper. Maybe 300 now instead of 320.
They are very good at what they do, right? Being able to fly as a reinforced cavalry unit that flies shouldn't be underestimated. Flying is incredibly useful in this game. It does prevent you from getting obscuring, but so do their huge bases. They wouldn't fit in obscuring anyway, right? So the flying is really, really useful. Being able to charge over screens, especially if you get that rampage off, really, really high mobility. Their dragon breaths are good. Their damage output in combat is good. They need to charge, so when they're not on the charge, like, I'm assuming people are using the lances. You can use the swords if you want. I think that unit is a little bit worse that way. You got to treat them like cavalry, like fulminators. They're big flying fulminators is what Stormdrakes are.
And fulminators aren't good right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So the problem with fulminators is that they're not as fast or as durable as Paladors, and they're not as durable as Dracolines. Like, they don't have the utility and trickery and recursion of Dracolines. And Stormdrakes are just big flying fulminators. So I think they're better because they're better fulminators effectively, but the cost is so prohibitive, not just in terms of point cost, but also opportunity cost on abilities. Having to dedicate all-out attack to make them do good damage in combat is a real bummer. A lot of our other units could get by with just having Vigilors, give them +1 hit. So once you bring Stormdrakes, you start thinking, well, maybe I want Bastion in this list, but Bastion doesn't really have any kind of synergy with them aside from the free all-out attack. They're just an awkward fit, and it could be the point value of them. It could be, maybe it's the current battle plans. 12-inch move is not enough to really get to the other side of the table, and they're too expensive to really score these battle tactics. The tactics this season really favor cheap, disposable units covering different sides of the battlefield, and Stormdrakes are none of those things.
I think that's another problem. I fought them this past weekend, and since I haven't played them in forever, I forgot that you cannot use Heaven Sent on them. I was reminding my opponent, hey, you should bring your Stormdrakes back, bro. He's like, well, no, wait, I can't do that. I think that counts as like a big negative in their favor. Like, being able to bring back 3 Paladors, or like, in a tight pinch, even 2 Fulminators or 2 Concussors could be very useful. I feel like if you can't bring back Stormdrake Guard, once they're dead, they're dead,
Yeah,
it's a big problem.
I've seen people even rally back 5 health models. It frustrates me because it never works out that way for me, but my opponents always do it. And you could just never do that with Stormdrakes. That's just not a dice option. Once they die, they die.
I think they just need to make it cheaper. like I think 300 points. I think like they finally written a like last. I remember when they came out when they were like 285. I think they finally written a war scroll that's sort of like those points. I think 320 is just. Ugh.
Yeah, hopefully they get cheaper, but they are still good and they're playable. They're not the best unit, but they are good.
Oh, you can try them as a min squad unit. Actually, it's not a bad idea. I think 4 is way too much because like it's hard to keep them in like
Too
a
many
buff circle. Yeah, and it's too many points, and you're trying to spread out and table your opponent. But I think there's armies that do the tabling job better than us right now. But as a min squad, I think like they can hold their own against other squads like that. Like they go up well against those things in the game, and they can handle some. Like a squad of 2 Stormbreakers can still handle some threats in the game, even reinforced pretty well with all that defense.
My issue with 2 is that you start comparing them to other monsters that are around that same point value, and there's no other monster in the game that loses half its damage when it takes 9 damage, you know? The bracketing is
that's
severe.
It's a big bracket.
That's fair.
As for other B tier units, I'll talk about the Reclusians first. They are reasonably tough. The reason we put them in B tier is because they have this cool combo with the Lord Terminos. You can give the Lord Terminos the Quicksilver Draft. He gets to fight first in the opponent's turn when he gets charged. And then the Reclusians that are standing around him get to fight with him first before your opponent has a chance to go. And that's a really good combo on a unit like Reclusians because they can get a 5-up ward, so they can be really tough against shooting and magic. Your opponent has to come into melee to deal with them. And once they get in there, you get to hit first. And that's pretty great as Stormcast because we have a lot of shooting usually behind those units as well. So they're forced to charge through this tough line of dudes that are going to hit you first with crit mortals. And then once they're finally done mopping up the Reclusians, well, they're taking another round of shooting. That's a great combo, and Reclusians are a pretty good unit, and they've earned their spot in the B tier. Annihilators with shields have been moved up recently from C tier. This has been a weird unit the entirety of 4th edition. We've always been saying, well, it's not bad. It's got cool rules. It was always just a cost thing, right? They started the edition at 180, and that means a reinforced unit was 360. They've now dropped to 280 for a reinforced unit, and that's a much more reasonable proposition, because if you consider that they have the same health and damage output of Questor Soulsworn, who cost 200 points, what you're getting is, for 80 points, you're getting +1 save, and you're trading your teleport for a chance at strike last when the enemy charges you. And 80 points is the right amount of points for that trade, because a +1 save is very, very good. A 2-up save is more than twice as good as a 3-up save. It is straight up stupid how good a 2+ save is right now. The amount of mortal wounds in the game is at an all-time low. Rend 2 is exceedingly rare, except for like anti-infantry. It's pretty rare to see Rend 2. There's a ton of Rend 1 attacking hammers in the game. Most Stormcast hammers, like most of the units we've talked about, are Rend 1, right?
Yeah.
Axe Palladors, Questor Soulsworn, Javelins, Evocators, Castigators are anti-cav, not anti-infantry. There's Prosecutors are Rend 1, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of Rend 1, and when you can be on a 2+ save against Rend 1, you're just not dying. Like, I very rarely lose more than 1 or 2 Annihilators when the turn after I drop them into a choke point. My opponent has to come in and kill them. And you can make them even tougher. You know, you can drop down a hero nearby with Bodyguard, and now all of a sudden that unit's -1 attack as well. There's lots of things you can do to make it like an unsurmountable challenge for your opponent to get through this wall. You don't, even without the strike last, they just don't have the damage to kill you. So 2+ saves, very good. They're also very easy to fit in regiments. It's very easy to find 280 points and a warrior chamber slot. So overall, I'm feeling pretty good about calling Annihilators B tier. Oh, to illustrate just how good a 2+ save is, we did the math, and a 3+ save with a 5+ ward, so something like Reclusians, is actually not as durable as an Annihilator with a 2+ save. Against most things, a 2+ save is just better. Obviously, mortal wounds are different, but there's not that many of those. And if they're putting mortal wounds into Annihilators, I'm okay with that. That means they're not putting the mortal wounds into something much more important like my Evocators or my Palladors. Concussors kind of fall into the same camp as Reclusians, where they get this cool strike first combo. And Concussors are very different because, unlike Reclusians, and we'll talk about Grandhammers later, they can actually move besides that combo. You know, you drop them into play, you wait for the enemy to charge you, you do your Thunderous Roar to disable commands, you do some damage with Concussors, hopefully kill some models, and, you know, that's the same thing that Reclusians do with the Lord Terminos. The difference with the Concussors is that they move 10 inches after doing that instead of 5 inches. So your opponent can't just ignore them. The concussors will find a space to engage the battle after that, whereas they could just run around the Reclusians and ignore them. You know, it's kind of sad if you can't find the right spot, and that's where concussors come in. Now, they are fragile to shooting and magic and charge mortals, being only 20 health when reinforced as opposed to something like Vanguard Paladars, which would be 30. That's a significant problem that this unit has to overcome. I haven't quite found the right list to do it. I haven't really been experimenting that hard because I've got time. They're not going away like a lot of other units. We've been focused more on evocators lately. But once the Legends rotation happens in June, I'm sure this is a unit we're going to experiment with more.
Give them a 2-up save. Look at all that armor.
2-up? Yeah, okay. That would be good.
I mean, even if
Khorne has a mighty Skull Crusher unit, which is as armored. It's not more heavily armored.
Yeah, but give them 6 health. They're not cavalry. They're like mini monsters, right? Like that's what they are.
Totally.
Like they're big. They're mini dragons. They're not like horses or like just like normal cavalry. So
yeah.
All right, guys, we put Krondys in B tier, and people are going to be upset. How are we justifying this?
I'll start. All right. The reason Krondys, I think, is in B tier is, I think, first of all, he is too expensive, and I'll tell you why he's too expensive. A 560 point model that is getting, I think, with a +2 to cast wizard, like you're saying, oh wow, that's so great. You can cast manifestations, you can countercast Starfall really well, or Thundershock really well. You can cast Forbidden Power amazing. You can cast his War Scroll spell and just like wreak havoc on your opponent's saves and sometimes even their attack profiles. The issue is you have to decide between using him as this like wizard unit that can just extend 18 inches and trouble your opponent, or as a hammer. And the thing is, in order to justify his 560 points, you have to use him as a hammer eventually for damage, at which point he's just okay. Like, he's not great at it. And not to mention, the 560 point tag is the base point tag. In order to protect him, and you do need to protect him, because once your opponent realizes that he's a buff piece, they're going to gun for him with all the shooting they have or anything else they have, which means an additional 150 point tags of Praetors, usually, with him. And in that sense, it makes list building really awkward because he's about 80 points more expensive than Karazai. And Karazai is just like not only just an absolute house in melee, but that -1 attack means he's the king of melee. Krondys doesn't know what he wants to do sometimes. That's what it feels like. It's like he wants to be casting, or if he wants to be fighting, but he's not that great at fighting. It's almost like that Indrasta problem we had in 3.0, where she was like this huntress that's supposed to go out and kill stuff. But at the same time, she has all these like abilities that are designed to just, castle around your troops and help them revive and, don't let them suffer battle shock. I think his role has not been as well defined, and I think the points cut has made him worse. I would like to see Krondys go back down, probably post-rotation sometime. Like I'm sure Vanguard Paladars will see another nerf of, next summer, because they have to realize people are still using them and maybe they get tired of people using them. But Krondys honestly should probably only be about 40 points more expensive than Karazai. 40 or 50, not 80.
Yeah, I think Ragong's absolutely right. Like, I played him quite a bit in the beginning half of this GHB. And there was always this feeling like that you were never getting enough out of him. It's like either you didn't get enough combat out of him, or you put him into too much combat and, either he died or he didn't end up doing enough of the other support stuff. Like, he's really sort of difficult to max out the efficiency on. And I think it's like a lot of people want to play him. A lot of people have him. He is super fun to play. But I think unless you're like a hyper skilled player, it's really difficult to squeeze enough out of him for the points you're paying.
His lists are weirdly elite. Like, if you build a Krondys list, by the time you get done putting, a cavalry unit, a shooter unit,
it's one
you're
job.
already at it's most of your points, and now you're only left with space for a hero and like a visual unit.
It's hard to score tactics. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like, how am I supposed to play the game? But like, how am I supposed to play the game with 5 or 6? Like, and that's what I don't get. Like, how is Be'lakor a 460 point model and Krondys a 560 point model?
Yeah.
Like, like they should be closer. I feel like that difference should not be 100 points or something.
I agree.
I think your point about him being a generalist is very valid. He really tries to do everything in an army that really focuses on specialized units. We generally don't have units that do everything very well. And when we do, they're usually too expensive or they have some kind of flaw like Stormdrake card. Krondus is trying to be a +2 caster in an army that really only cares about casting manifestations, and we have a wizard that's already a +1 to cast manifestations, and he's like a fifth of the price.
Yeah.
He's trying to be a big monster, but he's not durable enough to be a big monster like Karazai, and he's not punchy enough or has enough, onboard combat presence like the Lord Celestin on Stardrake. He has to get into melee to do any damage, or he has to buff units. But when you're spending 560 points on a buff piece, there's not a lot of points left in your army to get units that actually get buffed and or have units that do tactics. So I think he worked really well for that brief period of time at the start of the edition before our units got more expensive, right? That first round of nerfs to Vanguard Paladars, for example, really gave it to Krondus hard. There might be a chance he comes back as like a buff piece for Questers, because the real problem with Questers is the Rend 1. Everything else about them is great. Rend 1 is their Achilles heel, and Krondus could come back into play buffing that up. I like support heroes to be cheap. I want them to be easy to throw away at any time. That's why I like things like the Knight Arcanum and the Knight Relictor. If they die, I've lost... it's not that crucial to my army, right? Whereas if Krondus dies, it is crucial. But at the same time, he's so much of your army that you almost need him to die. Like, if he's not...
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, if he's not leveraging his bulk and damage, if he's not taking risky plays, then you're spending 600 points almost to get really not that much. So...
And he's got that pie plate, and you feel like you have to take Praetors because otherwise he's going to get shot off the board. He can't take enhancements, so unlike the Stardrake, he can't have Mirror Shield. He can't be protected in those ways. He can't take Envoy with him for a 5-up ward. So yeah, you're 710 points in for that combo.
A lot. It's too much.
Yes, it's. I mean, if you think of what's his name, Kragnos, who's buffing his entire army without casting any 2d6 dice rolls. Kragnos is 580, and he has a native 5-up ward. If Krondus had a native 5-up ward, I would be much more inclined to take him.
Kragnos buffs more than just his army. He buffs the Regiment of Renown that you bring with him too.
I'm saying like if I look at like a buff piece, right? Like Kragnos is like better than Krondus, like in terms of equivalency of what he's doing for the army and how good himself he is in combat, and all the Mortal Wound stuff he does. Krondus is you're like a Knight Arcanum stapled onto Karazai. It's like 2 Knight Arcanums stapled onto a Karazai. It's like, why does he have Roar? Like, he's not someone I actually want in combat all that much. Like, if anything, he's like his rampage should be like some tricky movement, or like he's the thinker, right? He doesn't just charge into combat like Karazai does. He's not like yelling in rage. He's planning his moves. So I don't know. It's just I would have liked something else, but I think he just needs to be cheaper. I think they've raised points on him initially, since like those initial Krondus lists were doing really well, and they haven't reevaluated him. I hope they do in next edition and next GHB and bring his points down by like 20 or 30. Because I don't think Krondus lists did well, did they? Like, I guess
no.
Yeah, no, because even the guy who came 8th was running Karazai and Estrella.
Yeah.
There's still some Krondus lists that are popping up. People still like using him, but I don't think it's the best way to play Stormcast right now. Still good.
And I think if you look, they probably, the ones doing really well probably aren't using Praetors, and they're just really good players. Yeah, and they know how to play it so that he's protected, and that's just a different level than the majority of people. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Maybe I will try Krondus without Praetors. We'll see how it goes. But I just,
it's the only way to do it.
Yeah, but it's like I think of us, like when I think of what lists I might fight, and I'm like, if I was fighting Krondus without Praetors, I'll just shoot him to death. Like,
I'd shoot him.
It wouldn't be a problem.
One tap, easy.
Yeah.
All right, Lord Relictor. He is our second best priest. I do think there is a significant power gap between him and the Knight Relictor, because all the Lord Relictor does is chant better. If the primary use of a priest is to bank points on your turn and then have a 2+ translocate in the enemy turn. Having a +1 doesn't really mean anything, right? It's like such a marginal gain in the reliability of that particular strategy. Where the Lord Relictor shines is twofold. The +1 really helps you chant blessed weapons, and as we see units like Questor Soulsworn and Annihilators and Reclusians all get better, like we're actually going to be using our infantry units because they're all getting cheaper over time. The way the book started, blessed weapons was like, we didn't even consider it because our infantry was way too expensive. Like, who's paying 360 points for reinforced Annihilators, taking them out of reserve, and then the following turn giving them blessed weapons on a 6? Like, no way. This was all a crazy idea. But now that it's all getting cheaper, we're starting to see blessed weapons actually be a real thing. It's going to make our infantry do actually more damage than our cavalry, so there's going to be an interesting dynamic. And that's the first thing the Lord Relictor does, is he chants that prayer better. The second thing he does is his regiment brings ruination units. So if you want a priest that can bring ruination, the Knight Relictor ain't it. Prosecutors and Reclusians are very good units, and a Lord Relictor is naturally buffing those units with blessed weapons. So he is one of the better ways to get prosecutors into your list.
Yeah, I think he's good, but he's a bit overshadowed if you're taking the line of blessed weapons. Like, Ionis is just there being like, well, you want a 6, then you can get it every turn with me.
Sure.
I think if that's your plan, that you're looking for bless, I feel like, yeah, Ionis is the way to go. But the Lord Relictor is like good amount of points, good ability. The +1's great. He's just like a solid hero.
Yeah, Ionis is obviously a lot more expensive. And for a turn 1, top of round 1, turn 1 bless, sure, Ionis is the best way to do it. But Lord Relictor could be chanting and gaining points in the enemy turn. He just gains D6 ritual points in the opponent's turn for a command point, if you don't need to translocate, for example, that turn. And it becomes reliable enough because he has that +1 that it's worth spending a command point on that. You can play very defensively with units like Prosecutors. They can go anywhere at any time, so you can stay really far back and you don't have to use your translocates on things. It's a different playstyle than using a Knight Relictor, who's a lot more aggressive. He's trying to shred wards off enemies and translocate units back to safety.
Mm-hmm.
Knight Zephyros is cheap. She brings Vanguard, and she teleports to score tactics. All of these things are very good. It doesn't matter what the War Scroll is. Like, that's all she needs, right? The stats don't matter.
Yeah. She scored so many points for me, and then against the Khorne game, because they basically ignored her because it's not worth distracting a hammer unit away to kill her. She just went in and killed a Bloodstoker. She has a bunch of anti-hero on her War Scroll. I was like, all right, I'll charge into your Bloodstoker. Take it out. I've made my points back.
Yep. And interestingly enough, she is the last unit that has the old Vanguard chamber, so she can always run, retreat, shoot, and charge. She doesn't matter how many. Don't know why, but okay. Maybe it's because she's going to Legends soon and they just forgot.
Oh, we are getting a new model coming back.
That's soon. If we are getting new War Scrolls for the new GHB, I think the Knight Zephyros is definitely a contender for that.
Yeah.
Lord Terminos and Lord Celestin on Dracoth, they are in here because they just live and die with the units they're buffing. Lord Terminos with Reclusian, Celestin with the Concussors. Whatever rank those units are at, that's the rank these heroes will be at. And Celestin Prime, he is an interesting piece because unlike most of our units that bring any Stormcast, he gets cheaper every battle scroll, but he is also just a reasonably good hammer unit. He's not flashy or exciting. He just moves forward and hits things pretty reasonably well. People also freak out when they see him because he's a big centerpiece-looking model, even though he's kind of like bringing an unreinforced cavalry unit in terms of damage output and speed and durability and everything. He's just fine. What I like about him is that instead of having to spend points on something like a wizard, like let's say you don't need a wizard and you have a wizard, you don't want a second one. You can just bring a hammer unit instead of bringing a support unit. So when I think of Stormcast list building, I think of good points and bad points. Hammer units are good points. Like if I could spend 2,000 points on hammers and just kill my opponent, that would be the best Stormcast list possible, right? Bad points are something like Estrella Soulbright, who's 220 points for not a lot of value. She's a supporting unit. For 220, she just doesn't do that much, right? Celestin Prime is good points, and that's an interesting niche for a hero to be. Most of our heroes are bad points, right? Lord Celestin on Stardrake is good points. Arcanum on Griff Charger is bad points. Celestin Prime, good points. Does that make any sense? I hope so.
No, it does. And I mean, Celestin Prime is what, 290 now? I think that's a playable point value for him, given his six attacks at 4 damage, crit mortals.
Yeah. 3's 2s. He gets buffed by Vigilor, so there's almost no opportunity cost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did make him. He can take anything. I think that's really important too. For 290, take anything, and he's essentially equivalent to a hammer of that price, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah,
for list building.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a fine hero. I think like they have neutered his defense a lot. I think maybe that's intentional because, but he is also, I want to say, like 10 wounds. I think
10 health, 4 up.
10 health,
5 up, 5 up.
Yeah, 3 up, 5 up, so like 15 health effectively. So like that's fine. Like I'm okay with him. I wish his counterpart Indrasta was cheaper. I don't know why they keep costing Indrasta 20 more.
It's the 3d6 charge. It has to be expensive. It's such a good ability.
I don't know. Like Indrasta is like if there was ever a unit that whiffs, it's Indrasta.
Yes.
So the event we went to over the weekend, I think there was like 2 lists that didn't have monsters, and it was our list, right? Like Argonk and I.
Yeah, Indrasta would have had a target-rich environment there.
And even in
Indrasta
that,
would have loved it.
Even in that scenario, I still wouldn't run Indrasta.
Yeah,
personally.
No, seriously, I probably wouldn't, because like the thing is, even against her ideal target, like out of the 8 attacks on her war scroll, only 3 of them are the relevant anti-monster ones. You could whip on those 3 very easily.
It's not enough attacks.
Yeah.
You don't get enough.
I would rather have Thangovar at so right now the distribution is Thangovar has a shooting attack, it has a 2 melee attacks, and then Blade of the High Heavens has 5 attacks of -2 and 3 damage. I would rather reverse that. Oh, sorry, not reverse that, but I would take away a couple of attacks of Blade of the High Heavens and give Thangovar more attacks.
Totally.
Like that's, I think, should be the change to her war scroll, or she could just get cheaper. Like Paul's at 250. Honestly, yeah. Like bring it on 270, man. Like if prosecutors are going to be 300 points for a reinforced unit, she needs to be lower than that. She cannot be more expensive than a reinforced unit of prosecutors, because right now those are just if you're looking to kill monsters if you're looking to kill monsters with a 3d6 charge, prosecutors are better.
Exactly.
Like, just bring a reinforced unit of prosecutors instead.
Yeah, they get the Ruination Chamber to ignore covering fire, so they actually get into melee half the time. I've seen Indrasta just get shot off on the way in. It's sad.
Yep.
Okay. Looking at our C tier units, these are units we do consider to be competitively viable. This is the cutoff, though. D tier and F tier units are not viable in competitive play. That is our opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it. The only C-tier units we're going to be talking about, because this video is already long enough, if you want the full Battletome review, you can go check that out. I'll try to put a link to it on the screen here. The C-tier units we're going to talk about are the ones who have changed position and why they've changed position. And then I think the other one we'll want to talk about are the Grand Hammer Annihilators and why they haven't changed position, even though they got a 20-point cut. So first up are Liberators. Nice and simple. I don't remember the last time I put Liberators into my list. They are the cheapest 3-up save screen that we have. And it just feels like we always have the points to use Vigilors instead. I can't. Mm-hmm. And reinforced Liberators are just useless now. Use Quest or Soulsworn instead. They're much better.
Yep, exactly. That Quest or Soulsworn are the reinforced Liberator, better reinforced Liberator option, and there's no reason to take Liberators unless there's nothing else you can fit for. Even then, I would choose to take Griffhounds because they're faster and they can do take the flanks.
Yeah. Now, people will of course say, well, Liberators have Crit Mortals. And yes, they do. Crit Mortals are nice. But what's nicer than Crit Mortals is doing 38 max damage instead of 25 like the Liberators do in the Reinforced. Questers are just almost strictly better by almost every definition.
And a teleport.
Yeah, and a teleport. Yeah. Sequitors. Yeah. Okay, so they started the edition at 170 somehow. I remember in our review, I'm like, what is this unit doing? Like 340 points for Reinforced, basically Liberators? Like, what are we doing here? Their rule is very cool. Being able to shut off enemy abilities, being able to shut off melee weapon abilities is very good. That means no charge +1 damage. That means no crit auto wounds, no crit hits, no crit mortals, no anti-infantry. So that is a really, really, really interesting niche. I thought about using them reinforced, and for 240 points, you can just use Quest or Soulsworn for 200 points.
No, I think they're better as one. They're better as we were talking about the Liberators, the cheapest screen. Sequitors are actually like a screen that you can like. I could very easily see like taking a unit of Dracothian Guard, putting 5 Sequitors in front of them, and just hug them. So not a screen. Your concussors or whatever will get into combat, but any charge bonuses, any anti-cav your opponent's getting, you can turn that off.
Now, of course, they're very hard to use because you have to be contesting an objective that you control. And that can be very hard to do because normally when they drop into play, they're not on objectives that are being held by enemies, and they don't really have the mobility or anything to get in like a prosecutor. So it can be really tough to capture an objective and then put these guys where they need to be. Maybe if you're like using magical intervention to teleport them forward with translocate after you capture an objective with your cavalry, that could be an option. It's tough, but the buff is worth it. Like, it's such a strong effect to turn off charge +1 damage. There's a lot of units in the game where that's straight up a 50% health damage nerf. Like, it's crazy how much you reduce their damage. Like, prosecutors do nothing without charge +1 damage.
Yeah, there's so many like units that what's the name? Morbid Knights, Varangard, to name a couple. Things like the Iron Jaws pig, the big pigs, and the Gorgrunters that rely on charges +1 damage. Like, turning everything turning that off is just an insane ability.
Yeah,
turning off something like Crit Mortals from Chosen.
Crit Mortals, huge. Yeah.
Turning off Crit Mortals or like crit auto wounds from Nighthaunt. Turning off Crit auto wound for Nighthaunt wrecks that army. That army is entirely reliant on their really bad hit rolls for crit auto wounds.
Yeah.
2+ saves are no joke.
No, it makes sense. You're turning off anti-infantry rend, and you're turning off Crit Mortals, and you're turning off +1 damage.
So I think they get a C tier for now. I don't know how much we can invest in something like that because it can be tough to find the units that can bring Sacrosanct and the hammers that you actually want to bring. And it's tough for them to get, in the right position when you're playing something like Dracolines. So C tier for now. I wish we had more time to experiment with them. I fear this would have been so cool if this was in January. Like, oh man, all our list building would look different.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if it was just a misprint at the beginning or something. It's weird how they were.
No, they legitimately costed them like that because, I don't know, they saw that Sequitors had 2 Grand Hammers in there. Sorry, a big
I think it's based off keywords. Like, you see crit 2 hits and they cost that a certain amount, Yeah,
it's a formula. Formula. It's based on how many rules they have, like, just off of number, not effect.
And it could have been that they were like 150 and then they added 10% late into testing and then they rounded up, so it went from 150 to 165 and 170, something like that could have been. Okay, Grandhammer Annihilators, they got a 20-point cut, and I'm still not super hot on them because it's hard to get over how they used to be played, which was to drop them out of reserve, charge them in, do damage, and then your opponent is forced to kill them, or else they get to do it again and again and again. So they used to be like a distraction hammer kind of thing, and they're just not that anymore, right? And it's hard to get over that. It's hard to find new uses for them. The one I'm currently experimenting with, now that it's cheaper, it looks a lot more appealing, is to have a Lord Celestant on foot, which is why they're up +1 on this tier list, with a pack of probably 6 Grandhammer Annihilators, dropping in basically exactly how we would use Reclusians with a Lord Terminos, but instead of doing, good damage, they do ridiculously good damage. Like, Grandhammers, I've seen 6 Grandhammers with all-out attack kill 10 Chosen that charged in before they had a chance to fight. It's no joke how much damage these guys do. It's ridiculously good.
I think if we just had a run and charge prayer or spell, it would open these guys up.
No, it's not even that. I think the imperative is what needs to change. Like,
Sure, but that's
shields are the defensive version. They need to be the offensive version, and the problem is like relying on that 8-up strike class roll. That's not the point of that unit. Like, I don't like strike class is something you want either to negate someone's defensive strike first or to make sure multiple hammers get in. Stormcast, like, I don't really care about that. If I'm sending in Annihilators, that's the only thing that's really fighting that turn most likely. So they just need a good delivery system. I think if the Imperitance made them drop like 6 inches out, and 6 inches out is enough to where you can have 2 things in range, and your opponent has to decide which one to redeploy back, and it might not be enough because you could charge the other target and pile in. I think that's ultimately what needs to change.
Yeah.
Otherwise they're
just not going to get played. Yeah.
Yeah, they're in a defensive role, right? They're basically sitting
Like,
behind Shield Annihilator or something.
I think
you played them a lot in third. I played them a lot too, and it was basically a guaranteed 7-inch if you did it properly.
guaranteed.
And even that wasn't all of the time. You know what I mean?
Like, yeah, it still wasn't good. It was good, but wasn't top tier because it
good, but it wasn't great. And now we don't even have that.
Yeah. Like requiring you to do a rerollable 7-inch charge was not a good play. Like it never saw top tables outside of like us playing it, but and even that gone, it makes it so much worse. And now they're even worse because like people are like, oh, you can countercharge them. I'm like, okay, so what you're telegraphing to your opponent is I always have to save 2 CP out of my 4 for a countercharge that I cannot reroll. And that's such a bad plan, man. Like that's so bad.
This is what I'm saying. We have to unlearn what they used to do. I think your analysis is correct, Mergonk. They're not meant, like, their War Scroll straight up isn't meant to do what they used to do. Charging and giving strike last when you're only fighting with one unit is almost completely meaningless. I think what they're supposed to be doing is charging alongside other units, right? Now, the problem with that is that the 8+ charge is unreliable. And because it's 8, it kind of makes you think like, oh, it's meant to be out of reserves, right? I think one possible way we can use Grand Hammers is as not necessarily the countercharge command ability, but we can use them as a countercharging unit, right? We've got a typical hammer and anvil setup. Your opponent charges in. We've got this tough wall of 2-up save annihilators with shields. They take the blow, and then on our turn, we can do, shooting and then charging with Grand Hammers. So I think what we can do is like a 2-turn, like a left-right hook kind of thing, where we take the hit, and then on our turn, we charge in with even 3 Grand Hammers, who could potentially give strike last to the enemy and do a lot of damage. I think that's one possible way we can use them. We can also do the strike last thing the strike first combo with the Lord Celestant. I think the dream of dropping them in from reserve and charging with them, I think we just have to give that up. I think that's a dead playstyle. And frankly, the way we're talking about it right now, maybe it's better that it's dead. Like it wasn't that fun, obviously, because we were the only ones doing it. Most people just didn't like playing it or playing against it.
What do you mean most people? Most people didn't even play against it.
Exactly. The people who did play against it didn't like it.
I guess. Whatever.
Look, I'm not happy about it. I liked it, obviously, but
no, I mean, I get it. Like if I'm on the receiving end, a 7-inch charge that you cannot redeploy feels like BS. Like
it's uninteractive. It's like the Storm Drake Guard onslaught move. It's just like, oh, okay, I guess I'm in combat. Turn 1, cool.
Yeah, but like maybe I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe improve their counter charge potential then, or their anvil potential. Maybe. I really wish, like, this unit, not the Annihilators with shields, this unit had rerollable charges on his War Scroll.
Yes, rerollable charges would really, that would be a big fix for them. And I honestly, Run and Charge Prayer would be a really big fix too. I think moving them away from that deep strike mentality is the way to go for them.
Yeah, like, I don't care too much about the strike last, but if I had a rerollable charge on their War Scroll, like, hey, this unit always has a +1 to charge and a rerollable charge, I would take that all the time.
For sure. Even just rerollable charge on a hammer. That's a good niche. Like, that's one of the things I like about Stormstrike Battledores. They're not a great unit, but being able to reroll charges without spending commands is good. It's really good in this edition, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that idea of, like, potentially using them in synergy with the Shield Annihilators, where maybe you've got, you move your screens forward or you drop your shield screens in, and then you drop the Annihilators in 10 inches behind, so on your turn you move up and charge whatever the shield wall is holding. Like there is something potentially there, given the price that these things are going down to. It's interesting to think about. But yeah, maybe we'll get some sort of Run and Charge Prayer or something at some point.
Lord Arcanum on Toralon is looking better, I think. I had it back. I've been waffling on whether it's playable or not. The best feature, obviously, is the 5-up board in combat, right? If you can give that to good units, a 5-up board with no dice roll required, just being near the unit, really good. You can combo that with Annihilators to have a 2+ save unit with a 5-up board and make them absurdly tanky. Not enough time to experiment before it's gone, but maybe just for selfish reasons, I'm putting it in the C tier to say that the Toralon was a competitively viable unit at the end.
I had one game with him. It was fun.
+1 cast is nice. With an Arcanum, you get +2, +3 if you're on a place of power. That is really nice.
The ability he has, the magic mortal wounds thing's really good. It's really fun. But yeah, no one's playing that guy. He's lonely.
Mm-hmm. Hornus the Redeemed can take any Stormcast and an Exemplar, and we were like, oh wow, that's now the cheapest hero that can do that. That should be, we should replace Estrella with that and gain 30 points on our list. It turns out that Tornus without Reclusians or Prosecutors to give rally to is actually a worse War Scroll than Estrella Soulbright, who is a really bad War Scroll for her cost, right? We use her because she brings everything and is a wizard, and Tornus brings everything. He's not a wizard. He's 190 points of not wizard, which is very low utility. If you want to give any value out of that War Scroll, you have to bring Ruination Chamber units, and then at that point, like, do you need to bring a hero that can bring any? Like, couldn't you just bring a Terminos, which you do want with the Reclusians? So
you don't care.
There's one specific list where Tornus fits, and that's like something like 2x6 Reclusians and Paladors. And that's not the best list, but it's interesting and it's different. So I think that's enough for a C tier.
Yeah, I don't know about Tornus. Like, I don't know what his deal is with the rally. Why couldn't he just be Ruination and Warrior Chamber? I don't know why he had to only be Ruination.
Oh, I'd love that, because we're about to lose the Heraldor, who does it for Warrior.
Yeah.
Okay, looking at some units in the D tier, the ones that changed. A lot of these are just like Decimators and Vanquishers are just obliterated by Questers at 200. There's just no reason to use these units anymore. I tried to make Decimators work. The meta just never really adapted to it. Too hard to use. Desolators are
Same thing with Desolators.
Yeah, they're just worse. They're just worse than their counterparts. Hurricanes got nerfed, and they're significantly worse than all of our other shooting options, so they're in the D tier. Aventus, there was a point where we were considering, well, if we have Estrella, what if we pay 80 points more for Aventus because he's a 2-cast wizard? No, we just have cheaper options to take the units we want to take. A 2-cast wizard for 310 without any bonuses is just not very good. Iridan the Witness. So Iridan got buffed. They have the same thing that Tornus has going on, which they can take any units and an Exemplar. And I tried to make it work, and Iridan's War Scroll is just so bad. There's nothing there. Very expensive, doesn't do much. Maybe this is more useful in the Army of Renown, but it just, for regular Stormcast match play, no. It's way too expensive. Like 240 is the right price for Iridan, I think.
Yeah, 240. I think the price is right. I think 12 health, man. Come on.
It's the War Scroll's bad, yeah. And finally, Andrasta. She got cheaper, but she's just outclassed. There's so many other ways we don't have trouble killing monsters as Stormcast. We just don't. It's not an issue for us.
Yeah, and we have so many other tools like Night Relictor, shooters, cavalry. We typically are a combined arms force. We don't need someone as specialized as her that otherwise has a really low damage ceiling. Her damage ceiling is something like what?
35.
15, 35. Yeah, against monsters. Against non-monsters, it's like 25. So just use this less than prime if you really want. Yeah, she needs to be, like I said, cheaper than a reinforced unit or prosecutors. If she's being priced for that 3d6, I would like to see her like 280.
If she always did her max damage, not just against monsters, if that was just her damage, she'd be a lot more interesting. But the fact that it has to go into monsters, there's a lot of times, even when you play against monsters, that you don't want to throw her into monsters because it's not the right call at that time on that battle plan with those conditions,
Yeah, but also, I don't know why she's like 8 health and Celestial Prime's 10. Like,
well, that just makes sense. Celestial Prime's better.
Sure, but it's like, could have just been 10 health, like him, 12-inch move, same deal. I don't know.
4 up board. Put that back, and she immediately...
I really want to use her, okay? Like, I've had her since Dominion. She's a good model, good-looking model, in my opinion. Cool art, cool lore. I've read her books. Just, come on, GW, just do it for me. Bring it around to, like, 270. I'll start playing her, I promise.
Overall, I'm feeling really good about Stormcast. I know that the Legends rotation coming up is going to be... It's going to drop a lot of these, like, really good units, All the Sacrosanct stuff is gone, but it's going out on top. So I really... If it was going to leave, this is the best way to do it. Pretty happy about that. And that'll do it for this video. Thanks to all our viewers, especially our Patreon and YouTube members. You guys really make all this time that we put into the podcast worthwhile. Helps justify spending time on the hobby within the hobby. Like Warhammer takes up a lot of time, and then this podcast on top of that is a lot. So it's nice to have it's a little bit of money to buy some coffee with that. Everything we miss anything or our analysis is lacking, please feel free to leave a comment below the video. We read all the comments and we do our best to respond to them. We love talking about this game. If you love talking about it, come talk about it on the Stormkeep Discord server. You can check the link. You can click the link in the description to take you there. We have a battle reports forum. I actually just put my 5-0 run with Dracolines onto that battle reports forum. I do very detailed analysis of my thoughts during deployment, what I'm trying to accomplish for the next couple turns. My thought process is really, I try to go into detail about that because I think that's what people really want to see. Like how you're making these decisions. Why are you making these decisions? That's the kind of thing I try to give. It's got good photos, 5 really fun games. If you want to check it out, you got to join the server. Right now we have a painting terrain contest. So if you have a Stormreach portal or any terrain, really, you can put that up and have a chance to win fabulous prizes. And you can consider supporting us by becoming a member on YouTube or joining us on patreon.com/thestormkeep. I guarantee you the absolute best buyer's remorse when you sign up for the Stormkeep on Patreon. Nothing but the best from us. So that'll do it from us. Thank you everybody for listening. Hopefully this was interesting. We will see you guys again after the Legends Purge. We will try to do another update talking about the state of Stormcast. But there's going to be a big change with the General's Handbook as well. So there's just going to be a lot to talk about in the near future. With that, we will see you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
See you guys.